Stop. Take a breath. Take a breath.
As I stared at this.
He said he needed a place to hide. He didn't say he'd steal her heart in the process. But before this fugitive ever walked into their home, his story had already been written by someone else's choices. To secure her baby's future, another woman, someone Frank once trusted, staged a blind romantic date and manipulated a kind, honorable man into accepting her. 5 months later, she gave birth to a healthy child. Then, using what seemed like a legitimate excuse, she demanded he take responsibility. Bound by duty, he married her without hesitation. But married life wasn't the dream Frank imagined. His wife, Mandy, refused to take on even the simplest responsibilities of a homemaker. Instead, she dressed extravagantly every day, left early, came home late, and often didn't return at all. It left Frank confused and deeply troubled. Soon, Frank began to suspect that this woman wasn't as decent as he had believed. And one night, he finally gathered the courage to quietly follow her. As expected, he discovered the shameful things she was doing outside the home. Even when confronted, Mandy showed no remorse. Her face was filled with indifference and contempt. Frank's dignity was crushed. In a moment of rage, he lost control and pushed his wife to the floor. Mandy died instantly when the back of her head hit the ground. Before Frank could fully process what had happened, a drop of water suddenly fell onto Mandy's forehead. Panicking, he remembered the baby he had left in the bathtub. Terrified, he rushed upstairs to save the child. But it was already too late. The baby had tragically drowned in the tub. Frank was charged with killing both his wife and child, and sentenced to 25 years in prison. 5 years later, he escaped during an emergency appendectomy.
She looks like the kind of person that could help me.
To evade the police, Frank grabbed a young boy as a hostage in a small store and used him as leverage to flee. He forced the boy's mother to come over, threatened her with the child's safety,
Mom, this is Frank. Needs our help.
and ordered her to drive him home immediately. Fearing for her son's life, Adele obeyed Frank without resistance. She likely already suspected that Frank was the fugitive all over the news, but she stayed silent and tense throughout the drive. Even when they passed a police car head-on, she didn't dare move a muscle. Her son, Henry, was the only precious thing she had left in this painful world. Adele didn't know what Frank truly intended, but as long as her son remained safe, she was willing to sacrifice anything, even her own life. And perhaps moved by this mother's pure love for her child, Frank chose not to make things harder for them when they arrived home.
Second floor window at a hospital they'd taken me to get my appendix out.
In a calm voice, he explained that he wasn't a violent man and would never hurt anyone. He just needed a place to rest and planned to leave once night fell.
Tonight, and I can stay out of your way until then.
But to avoid getting Adele and Henry into trouble, he told her he needed to pretend to tie her up.
That's why I'm gonna have to tie you up.
Despite their fear, the mother and son had no choice but to comply. Yet even while tying her hands, Frank was careful and gentle, making sure not to hurt Adele unnecessarily. Perhaps to thank them or simply to feed them, he went into the kitchen and prepared lunch for both of them. Since Adele's hands were bound, he gently blew on each spoonful of food and fed her thoughtfully. Seeing this calm, considerate man in front of her, Adele could hardly believe he was a fugitive. Watching from the side, Henry was equally confused. Maybe this man wasn't as dangerous as the news made him seem. When night came, Frank untied Adele. He was ready to slip away into the darkness. But the sudden sound of police sirens outside changed everything. Patrols had increased, leaving Frank no choice but to stay until another opportunity arose. Early the next morning, while Adele and Henry were still asleep, Frank prepared breakfast for them. The delicious meal didn't just awaken their taste buds, it slowly eased the tension in Henry's heart. He no longer looked at Frank with fear, but with genuine admiration and respect. Frank's voice carried the calm authority of a father teaching his son how to survive danger.
How does a fellow let a woman like your mother get away?
As they talked, Henry slowly opened up about his deepest thoughts.
I've got a stepbrother and a half-sister.
Just then, Adele approached holding the rope in her hands, signaling Frank to tie them again. But Frank gently told her it was no longer necessary.
We won't be needing that any longer.
If he were ever caught, the rope would help remove suspicion from them. His calmness and kindness began melting Adele's fear. Acting on Henry's suggestion, she reluctantly took a bite of the breakfast Frank made. Then another. Slowly, her eyes softened with gratitude. She never imagined a hardened fugitive could cook with such warmth and care. To repay them for sheltering him, Frank began taking care of chores around the house. He cleared the dried leaves off the roof, repaired the broken steps, and even helped Henry fix Adele's beloved car. Through it all, Frank acted like a patient father, teaching Henry how to protect his mother so he wouldn't regret it someday. Maybe these lessons came from Frank's own deep regrets. He admitted that his escape was driven by a desire to return home and personally bury his parents, who had died in an accident. Every word Frank spoke felt like fresh water flowing into Henry's heart. For some reason, this fugitive gave the boy a sense of emotional connection he had always lacked. From sunrise to sunset, the two worked side by side. During a break, Frank carefully taught Henry how to generate strength while playing baseball. His tone was serious, like a real father coaching his son. For Henry, who had grown up without a father, this rare display of warmth was priceless. Adele watched from nearby as this touching scene unfolded, feeling emotions she hadn't expected. Maybe this man wasn't so bad after all. After spending just a short time together, both mother and son seemed to forget that Frank was a wanted fugitive. Adele even took out her sewing kit and carefully repaired a tear in Frank's pants. Each stitch carried a quiet care. In this tender moment, Frank gently asked about the scar on her leg. But before the warmth could settle, a sudden knock on the door shattered the calm. Instinctively, Frank grabbed Adele as a hostage, tense and alert, and told Henry to quickly get rid of the visitor. When Henry opened the door, he saw their new neighbor, the one who had just moved in next door. She had brought them some peaches and took the chance to warn them about a killer on the loose, urging them to be extremely cautious.
I doubt he's anywhere near here by now.
But even though Henry had the perfect chance to turn Frank in, he stayed silent and made up a clever excuse to send the neighbor away. Only then did Frank relax, realizing how much trust Henry had placed in him. With a fatherly tone, he praised the boy for doing an excellent job. Henry smiled proudly, happy to have earned Frank's approval. Adele, watching quietly from the side, noticed this extraordinary moment too. Feelings long buried inside her began to bloom once again. To thank them for their trust, Frank suggested using the peaches the neighbor had brought to teach them how to make a fruit pie. It was a family recipe he was proud of, and he was now willing to share it with people he believed were worthy of it. In that sunlit kitchen, their movements blended in warm harmony. The way they interacted was full of joy, like a happy family of three.
Mix it up. Just let him call you.
Frank stood behind Adele, gently guiding her through kneading the dough. In this intimate moment, every fleeting glance and every subtle touch, perfectly timed, sent a nervous flutter through Adele's heart. This tender emotional rush flowed quietly into her chest, awakening desires she had long forgotten. Her heartbeat quickened, and a slight tremble ran down her body. Henry watched silently from the side. He sensed the emotional wave inside his mother's heart. Even though he didn't fully understand those gestures, he was certain that his mother, just like him, had accepted Frank deeply. Frank's arrival didn't just give Henry the fatherly warmth he had missed his whole life, it also restored Adele's faith and love, something she thought she had lost forever. As the pie slowly baked in the oven, its aroma filled every corner of the room. In the comfort of that warm atmosphere, Frank gathered his courage and gently placed his hand around Adele's waist. Just as he hoped, Adele didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned toward him, unable to resist. The two were drawn into a moment of stillness, neither wanting to break away. But Frank knew that staying would only bring trouble and danger to Adele and Henry. When night fell and the patrol cars disappeared into the distance, he realized it was the perfect chance to escape. Hearing this, Henry looked devastated, as if waking from a bad dream, and Adele's face showed a flicker of disappointed longing. Their heartfelt pleas left Frank torn, and though he struggled, he eventually chose to stay. Still, worry pressed heavily on his heart. He wasn't sure if he had made the right decision. These inner fears and doubts became invisible chains holding him back. Yet Frank's yearning for a better life, and his natural sense of responsibility as a man, gradually allowed him to blend into their lives and accept the truth. Henry now saw him as a father. Their lives seemed to be moving in a new direction. Apart from being unable to walk beside Adele in broad daylight, Frank had already taken on every responsibility a husband might carry. In their spare time, ballroom dancing became their shared escape, an intimate way to comfort each other. Their elegant steps and lingering glances became the softest expression of their bond. The darkness and pain of the past slowly faded, replaced by the simple gift of having found each other. But Frank's identity as a fugitive cast a shadow of uncertainty over this fragile happiness,
Keep an eye out, all right?
forcing them to stay constantly cautious. One evening, their neighbor Evelyn suddenly rushed into Adele's house, begging her to look after her son, Barry.
Where's your mom?
I don't know.
Before Adele could refuse,
Please, one mother to another.
Evelyn had already left the boy at the door and hurried away. With no other choice, Adele reluctantly agreed to take care of him.
August.
Later, Frank took Barry out to the backyard, slipping naturally into the role of a gentle father figure as he played baseball with the two boys. Under the blazing summer sun, their cheerful laughter filled the air. Even Adele rediscovered a smile she had long forgotten. At first, Barry's arrival felt like a small but joyful detour. But that evening, when Evelyn came to pick him up, a news report about Frank appeared on the TV. Barry looked at the picture on the screen and suddenly recognized the man he had been playing with. He screamed sharply, trying to alert his mother to the fugitive in the house. But Evelyn didn't understand what he meant. She simply assumed he was throwing a tantrum because he wanted to keep watching television. A hard slap from Evelyn broke the tension in the room and restored a moment of calm. Frank! But even so, the unexpected incident cast a lingering shadow over everyone's hearts. Frank knew he couldn't stay any longer. Yet he couldn't bear the thought of leaving Adele and Henry behind. To avoid another disastrous close call, he and Adele began thinking about running away together. But before they could make such a life-changing decision, Adele needed to be sure. Could Frank truly accept her, flaws and all? So she shared every painful memory she had tried to forget. After giving birth to Henry, she became pregnant again. But in one careless moment, the baby died before birth. What made it worse was that she became unable to have children ever again. Henry's father couldn't accept this, so he abandoned her, later starting a new family with his secretary. Adele fell into a deep depression, her spirit shrouded in darkness. Fortunately, having Henry by her side gave her strength to move forward. Running away now would finally allow her to leave the past behind. But deep inside, Adele was still afraid. She feared Frank might not accept her true self.
Eventually, when Gerald left,
Frank's words fell gently into Adele's heart like a stone landing in a still lake, sending soft ripples through emotions she thought had died. Not only did his words stir something deep inside her, but like the first ray of morning sunlight breaking through heavy clouds, they lit up her world and gave her a new hope for happiness. After long reflection, Adele and Frank began planning their escape in detail.
Until I can walk down the street, arm around you.
Unbeknownst to them, Henry had overheard everything from behind the door. The next day, He went to the library and borrowed books, hoping to help his mother find an even better, safer escape route. But fate always has its own plans. At the library, Henry met a girl his age named Eleanor. Perhaps influenced by these new and unfamiliar emotions blossoming inside him, Henry felt drawn to her and approached her nervously. During their conversation, he learned that Eleanor's parents were also divorced, and even worse, her mother's new boyfriend had kicked her out of the house.
I'm supposed to try out living with my dad this year. But really, I think my mom just wanted to get rid of me, so she can fool around with her boyfriend.
Leaving her lost in a place she barely knew. Hearing her story, Henry felt a deep surge of empathy. He shared how his mother and Frank had grown close.
This guy, he just moved in my mom and me.
In that moment, their hearts resonated, two kids connected by stories of broken families and fragile hope. Eleanor's words lingered deeply in Henry's mind. That evening, when Henry returned home, he found his mother dancing joyfully with Frank. She no longer looked burdened by sorrow, she looked bright, alive again. Overwhelmed with happiness, Adele decided to finally tell Henry everything. Henry had once feared he would meet the same fate as Eleanor, that his mother would abandon him without hesitation.
Do you even care about what happens to me?
But thankfully, Adele wasn't the cold, selfish woman the world might have assumed. She would never trade her child for comfort or freedom. In the end, they decided to take Henry with them and face this new journey together.
Pack the car and go.
The next morning, they began packing their bags. But before leaving, Henry wanted to see Eleanor one last time. First, to share the joy of knowing he wouldn't be abandoned. And second, to say goodbye to someone who had become special to him. But during their talk, Henry accidentally let something slip, revealing the truth about his mother and Frank. Realizing his mistake, panic washed over his face. Fortunately, Eleanor was kind-hearted. She promised Henry she wouldn't tell anyone, and sealed that promise with his very first kiss. When he returned home, Henry decided to write a letter to his biological father. It was a farewell, free of resentment or blame. It carried only a gentle acceptance of the past and a hopeful yearning for the future. He placed the letter in a nice envelope, and while Frank and his mother were still packing, he quietly walked to his father's house and slipped it into the mailbox himself. In that moment, Henry felt a peace he had never known. But on his way back, a police officer, one who had secretly harbored feelings for Adele, noticed Henry alone. Ignoring the boy's objections, the officer insisted on driving him home.
Well, just to be safe, I'm going to give you a ride.
With no other option, Henry reluctantly got into the car. As they arrived, Adele saw her son stepping out of a police car, and panic surged through her. Thankfully, it was a false alarm. The officer simply wanted to ensure Henry's safety, warning them to be extra cautious because a fugitive had been reported in the area. Upstairs, Frank witnessed the entire scene. He knew their time was running out. To avoid further danger, he suggested that Adele go to the bank quickly to withdraw money.
Here now, take Henry to the bank. I'll finish up here.
But when they arrived at the bank, they discovered an unwritten rule: withdrawing a large amount of cash required a legitimate reason. Faced with strict questioning, Adele grew nervous and began to tremble.
Situation for us having a person withdraw this much in cash.
Sensing something was off, the bank manager's suspicions started to rise. In that tense moment, Henry remembered what Frank had taught him: tell the truth in a misleading way. So he said, "Actually, we've packed everything. We're emptying our bank account and heading to the border."
Actually, we've packed up all the things. We're emptying our bank account and then gonna make a run for the border.
You know, like Bonnie and Clyde. As Frank always said, sometimes the truth is the best disguise. Henry's unexpected honesty not only made the employees laugh, it completely erased their doubts. Meanwhile at home, while Frank was fixing a light, Evelyn suddenly showed up. In that critical moment, he claimed he was a mechanic Adele had hired.
Are you a friend?
Just the handyman.
The explanation quickly eased Evelyn's suspicions. After dropping off a few items, Evelyn rushed away. But Frank still wasn't sure if she fully believed him. Moments later, Henry and Adele returned home, but danger was already closing in. Just as they were about to leave, the sharp wail of police sirens cut through the air outside. Fear gripped their hearts instantly. Adele urged Frank to escape alone, but he knew exactly what leaving would mean for her and Henry. He didn't want to become the kind of man who abandons his family to face consequences meant for him. He wrapped Adele in his arms, gently reassuring her not to worry. As time ran out, he quickly tied Adele up again, then whispered a soft, loving farewell.
I'd take 20 more years just to have another 3 days with you.
Tears streamed down her face as she watched Frank disappear into the sunlight. No one knew who exposed Frank's identity. He was charged with escape and kidnapping and received an additional 10 years in prison. As the prison transport drove away, the light in Adele's eyes slowly dimmed. This meant Frank would now spend 20 years behind bars. During his sentence, Adele did everything she could, consulting countless lawyers in hopes of clearing Frank's name. But each time, she received the same cold warnings. The harsh words of the lawyers pushed Adele into a painful corner.
Adele, these situations are never simple.
After endless struggle, she finally chose to stop fighting the case, yet that didn't mean giving up on her feelings. She continued to visit Frank regularly and sent him letters full of affection and care. But Frank didn't want to become an obstacle to Adele's happiness. He hoped she would forget him and pursue the life she deserved. That's why he kept rejecting her. In the end, those 3 days they shared were beautiful and unforgettable, but they were only a fleeting dream. Time passed, and Henry blossomed under the warmth of the fatherly love Frank had once given him. Thanks to the baseball skills Frank taught him, he became a key player on his school team. Thanks to the tire-changing trick Frank once showed him, he eventually met the love of his life. 20 years later, Henry had grown from a boy into a humble, trustworthy young man. Using Frank's fruit pie recipe, he opened a highly successful bakery. As Frank's release date approached, Henry received a letter from the prison. "I hope you remember me."
Dear Henry, I hope you will remember me.
"We once spent Labor Day weekend together." In that letter, Frank made a vow. This time, he wouldn't let Adele's heart break again. If fate allowed it, and if Adele was still free, he begged Henry to let them meet once more.
And I'd like to live much the same way we discussed that weekend, back when we thought we'd be a family.
Henry knew his mother had waited in that house for 20 long years, clinging to the hope that Frank would return. She never moved away, not even once, afraid that if he ever came back, he might not find his way home. Adele and Frank lived for decades in a prison of longing, held together only by unwavering hope. On one side, a love that never faded. On the other, a bridge built from steadfast faith. Finally, after surviving the storms of life, destiny brought them together again. Two hearts reunited at the edge of time. A once blurry face slowly sharpened into the only image they saw in each other's eyes. A simple embrace, one they had waited for through countless nights and days. Before they met again, each was bound by emotional chains. Perhaps those very chains were what tied their fates together. Through their journey, they discovered warmth and hope in each other. Two wounded souls, healing side by side, moving forward hand in hand.